In this edition of the 6 p.m. newscast on Equinox Television, we take you to Yaoundé Central region of the country, where actors of the civil society have said Head of State Paul Biya should make the country's electoral calendar public. And their demand is coming at a time when ELECAM, the elections governing body in Cameroon, is announcing the reopening on the biometric registration of voters this month. And also we talk sports, football, where the Minister of Sports and Physical Education says that the Jean-Paul Akono's list of 25 is illegal. For joining us in this edition of the 6 p.m. newscast on Equinox Television. A coalition of Cameroonian civil society actors have called on Head of State Paul Biya to make known the electoral calendar in the country, and they were speaking in a briefing to present their results on the observations of the just ended senatorial elections in the country, which took place on April 14, 2013. Details in the following report with Roland Akong, a Yaoundé-based correspondent.
The head of state alone knows the electoral calendar. What the Coalition for Democratic Governance believes is not normal.
In a normal democracy, those things should be known. Every election that is fixed has a date which is known well ahead of time. Somebody should be able to tell you 2 years ahead of time that the elections will hold in such and such a date.
The coalition is also against the fact that the president is having to appoint 30 out of 100 senators, leaving Cameroonians to elect 70.
We think there's a difference between somebody who is elected and somebody who is appointed, and these two cannot be sitting at the same table to argue about the laws of the country.
For the upcoming twin council and parliamentary elections, the coalition has already identified a danger that poses for the state.
The law says that we have 90 days between the convening of the electorate for the other elections. Now, if that's going to happen, then between 90 days and the 60 days that the parliamentarians have, there will be 30 days of void, during which we don't have a parliament. So how is the country going to run during that period?
These remarks were made in Yaoundé Thursday as the Coalition for Democratic Governance publishes its observation results of the senatorial election.
We noticed, for example, that there was corruption, that there was a corruption of voters. There was the use of state property for campaigns, which is wrong. We noticed, for example, also that women did not have a fair representation. We noticed that people with disabilities did not have proper representation also.
Useful remarks for future elections.
And civil society actors in the country are demanding the definition of the country's electoral calendar when elections. Cameroon has announced the reopening of the biometric registration of voters on the electoral list for May 22nd, 2013. The information is contained in a release today signed by the Director General of Elections Cameroon, Mohamed Sani Tanimu, and the release also said that the registration would go on until the electorate is convened for the municipal and legislative elections. Voters' cards would also be made available for May 22nd, 2013. And the governor of the Littoral region has inaugurated the area of the 50th anniversary celebration and reunification of Cameroon. Joseph Betia Somo equally inaugurated its monument today. That was in the Douala 4 municipality here in the economic capital Douala, precisely at Sodiko. For Hansen Chanji, in the following report, brings us back to the history of Cameroon's reunification monument.
The monument of the 50th anniversary of the independence and reunification of Cameroon is said to be a token of the cultural heritage and a symbol of an open and welcoming people who have been involved in the creation of the cosmopolitan township of Douala. Historically, the present institutions of the country were born in the populated littoral region from Campo to Manfi by the Sawa people, who all share the Douala dialect. built round the monument are symbolic objects such as a bell heralding a solemn moment such as the arrival of chiefs or beginning of a traditional court session. The monument also has a cayman or ngando, which is a traditional totem of one of the largest villages of the Sawas. There is also a pot on a tripod, drums, a key which is said to have the ability to open all doors of the city, among others.
And in the wake of the report by for Hansen Chanji, Kam is yet to return on the campus of the University of Buea. We are in the southwest region of the country as students of the said institution today continued with their protest demonstration. The yesterday grounded lectures on the campus of the university set a car belonging to the university administration ablaze and also got at least 5 security guards on campus seriously injured. A Buea-based correspondent Derek Jato witnessed the event just as it happened.
Flag flying at half-mast, a car set on fire. Forces of law and order ushered out of the campus, and when these policemen reinforced and came back, they exploded tear gas, even in the surrounding neighborhoods, Moliko. Witnesses, especially the campus police, who were trashed in this office by the students, will find it hard to forget what they term a day of terror. Mr. Ako Julius is the advisor to the Southwest Youth Association. We are calling on the police people to be orderly. Police people were spraying tear gas into the quarters that affected even little children. These students say the reasons for their strike are as follows: that the presidential grant should be given to students having as from 2 GPA, not as from 3. All the court charges levied on the student leaders should be uplifted. Allow elections of the University of Buea Student Union to be conducted as to the norms of the union. And the number of receipt courses should be increased, among others. In a telephone interview with an administrator of the University of Buea, he said the students causing unrest on campus are not the University of Buea Student Union members, but are a handful of students who have decided to disrupt classes, and the school administrators will take the necessary measures. To Mr. Eban Williams, president of the Southwest Youth Association, dialogue should be part of every step that is to be taken now.
We want to call on the administration and the student body to sit down and to try to dialogue to make sure that any form of violence is discontinued.
That is actually what unfolded yesterday on the campus of the University of Buea. And information reaching us from that part of the country say calm has so far returned on the campus and that classes are yet to resume. And we hear that the crisis meeting was held today on the campus of the University of Buea, and we shall be keeping you updated on that in a subsequent newscast. Now we remain in academics to talk about pupils of a Presbyterian primary school here in the economic capital Douala, precisely at the New Bell locality, who couldn't have access to their classrooms. That was this morning, and this is after their gates were locked by some yet to be identified individuals. And as Staff Lady Anabila tells us in the following report, that could possibly be the fruit or the result of a misunderstanding between the headmaster of the said school and also some parish pastors. Her report.
There is total confusion here at New Vision Primary School in New Bell, which is run by l'Église Presbyterienne du Cameroon. The bone of contention is a clash of authority by two camps, the school director and the pastors of the parish.
No, there is just a misunderstanding. If there's a problem, the hierarchy should be followed. I don't say that the headmaster the children should be blocked at 7 o'clock. Even there's a problem.
Children are all out of class.
Sorry, we are quite having some difficulties coming to the end of that report. We surely shall be coming back to that in our subsequent newscast. Meantime, an intra-urban transport bus here in the economic capital Douala went into flames. That was this afternoon around the Valley Besenge here in the city of Douala. The Soccer 2 bus was transporting passengers from Aqua to Daido at the time of the incident. Efforts at putting out the flames were rather fruitless, and today's incident is coming about 3 weeks after another bus belonging to the same company was burnt at Bonanjo here in the economic capital Douala. Now, in the central region of the country, we take you back to the Mimboman locality to say that all is not well after months of a series of ritual killings in that part of Cameroon. This is after another macabre discovery was made in that region, or in that particular locality of the central region of the country. The mortal remains of a young girl was discovered lying dead. That was yesterday at the Mimboman locality. The Mimboman area was some months back, like I earlier indicated, hit by a series of alleged serial killings. And inhabitants of Sitebech 1 and 2 here in the economic capital Douala, precisely at the Douala Free Municipality, have been exhorted to legalize their occupation of pieces of land and said that their property and so that they can be safe from dubious attitudes of some family members or some of those who sell landed properties to inhabitants of the city of Douala. And it is after it was proven that the land title is authentic. There was one family here in the economic capital Douala which requested that inhabitants should pay a symbolic amount of money ranging from 25,000 francs to 2,500 francs rather to 3,000 francs CFA. And that report was done today in the economic capital Douala by Babila Jonathan.
The land problem between inhabitants of Sitebech and the Dibois family in the Douala 3 subdivision, littoral region of Cameroon, has been pulling on for over 25 years. Some inhabitants are still questioning a collective land title brandished by the Dibois family to claim ownership of the land. During a consultation meeting between the two parties and the divisional officer for the Douala 3 subdivision, the latter made it clear that it has been proven that the land title is authentic. He further stated that the problem has shifted from questions on the land title to the payment of a symbolic amount of money by inhabitants to the Dibois family in view of obtaining their land titles. We have chosen dialogue between the holders of the land title and the population to avoid unnecessary fighting. It is important that these people should come out of illegality and legalize their occupation of pieces of land within the locality. The land problem concerns only inhabitants of Sitebech 1 and 2. Sitebech 3 is out of a limit stated in the land title, following an accord signed in 2002 by the representative of the Dibois family and the headquarters representing the population. Some inhabitants are said to have already paid some money to the Dibois family and are in possession of their land titles. A great proportion of the inhabitants of this neighborhood, originally known as Bidudungu, have not paid the money requested by the Dibois family. Time has passed and the money expected from the population has equally changed. The Dibois family is now demanding 3,000 francs CFA for a square meter of land, but some inhabitants have proposed 1,000 francs CFA. It is hoped that during the next meeting, expected to come up in less than 2 weeks, a compromise will be reached by both parties.
Both parties there could not come into compromise. The bone of contention there is the alleged misappropriation of land, and both parties could not come to a compromise despite the meeting that was chaired by the DO for the Douala Free Municipality. That was today. And we now talk agriculture, as cassava stems have been distributed to farmers in Yaoundé Centre region of the country. The government says the move is aimed at boosting Cameroon's cassava yield by 2000 2015, and the ceremony took place today in the central region of the country and was chaired by Agriculture and Rural Development Minister Esimi Menye in the presence of our Yaoundé-based correspondent Roland Ako.
These are high-yield cassava curds the Minister of Agriculture is distributing to farmers in Gumu in the central region. This cassava farm is developed with the help of international partners to have enough cassava cuttings so as to boost cassava production in Cameroon by 2015.
The objective of today is to start the production of cassava in order to be able to have factories that will be milling cassava in 2015. Then hopefully we'll be able to be self-sufficient in this crop.
The new varieties cannot be kept for more than 4 days, and so farmers who want them must already have their farms ready. Farmers are eager to know what it takes to have the high-yield cassava curds.
If you want to have cassava cuttings, you need first to get in touch with our delegate at the rural area level, and then they will visit your farm and make sure you are really ready to receive the cuttings, and then you can plant them in a few time period.
Apart from gari, cakes, chips, bread, among others, are food items obtained from cassava.
Roland Akon there reporting from Yaoundé Central region of the country. Now we talk sports football before we get to meet our guests, as the Minister of Sports and Physical Education has qualified Akono's recent list of 25 as illegal. Minister Dom Gariwa says the interim Lion coach failed to respect the necessary procedure, and it was ahead of the team's friendly encounter against Ukraine billed for June 2013. Meanwhile, the new head coach of the Indomitable Lions of Cameroon may soon be known, and reports say the Minister of Sports and Fecafoot officials met recently to discuss on who could be appointed the team coach of the Indomitable Lions of Cameroon, and there are indications that the new coach might be a foreigner. That does it, viewers, for this segment of the news. Time for us to meet our guests. Thank you once again, viewers, for joining us tonight on Talking Point. We are going to be talking about the reports of the IMF mission in Cameroon, which is urging the government of the country to stop subvention of fuels in the country. Our guest tonight is a consultant, or a financial consultant, or an economic consultant. Good evening, and thanks indeed for joining us tonight, Mr. Richard Tondo.
Good evening, Mimi, and thank you for inviting me.
Like I earlier indicated, the IMF mission in Cameroon is urging or calling on the Cameroonian government to reduce or stop subventing or subsidizing fuel in Cameroon. So what's your immediate reaction to that?
My immediate reaction is that, first of all, we know that the government has been trying, under the pressure of IMF and the World Bank, to increase fuel prices for the past 3 or 4 years. And they have been facing strong opposition from the civil society and from all the partakers of the national economy. Unfortunately, the way it is presented this time, it seems as if it is more or less like a dictation from the IMF, meaning that there's no sovereignty in economic decisions. So that's my first impression. Secondly, we don't think, due to all the objectives that have been going on with the IMF and all the international monetary institutions, that the arguments are really sound. they have been rather presenting very flimsy arguments because they try to rely on the poverty, while we know that all the decisions, all the economic policies that they have been developing into developing countries and all the other third world countries are aimed at impoverishing those countries and trying to increase.
The reason that, or the claims that the IMF mission is giving is that the money could be used, the money used in subsidizing fuel in the country could be used in sponsoring some developmental projects that could help the low-income population of the country. So you say the reason is is unjustifiable? Is that what you're saying?
It is very unjustifiable because with the structural adjustment policies that they imposed on our country since the 70s, or let's say the 80s, there has been no improvement in social amenities in our country, be it on the educational side or health side of the life. First of all, their policies aimed at reducing the number of nurses in hospital. How can you reduce the number of nurses in hospital, the number of teachers, because they have not been employing teachers or nurses except through very exceptional cases. For the past 30 or 40 years. They have not been training midwives for the past 30 years. So how do you pretend to combat poverty and to defend the low-income earners by reducing what is going to help them? Let's take the case of fuel. When there's every time there's fuel increase, who are the people who start striking first? The poor people. Taxi drivers. Are they rich men? They are not.
So how is it going to, maybe, what's going to be the impact should the government abide on the IMF mission's urge or their demand?
It depends whether the government is really sovereign or not, and whether they have been thinking of any other ways of trying to tackle the very sad consequences emanating from that decision. Like in Ghana, what they did in Ghana was quite different. They tried to use that money for social amenities. And they later on, even in Nigeria, later on they had to increase the subsidies again. No country in the world, at least third world country, has accepted reducing completely those subsidies, because the developing countries have been subsidizing their economies, be it agriculture or anything.
Cameroon is doing, and you're asking about government sovereignty.
Yes, government should be sovereign, and governments should try and share the little cake we are getting from fuel revenues through subsidies.
Why do you think that the mission is actually putting the pressure more on Cameroon now at this time?
They are putting more pressure because we don't have the power to do more. We thought, we were expecting that mission also to speak about governance. We do not think it wise at the time when you take the case of a hospital like CHU in Yaoundé. They cannot pay salaries normally. And then at the very moment, we are spending much on some institutions that seem not to be really useful for the development of this country. I'm talking about the Senate.
Now, what is going to, let us see how, you earlier mentioned that the low-income people in the country are going to be the most affected. But the IMF mission is claiming that their proposition aims at maybe improving on the livelihoods of the low-income people in Cameroon. Don't you think that this could somehow as well be a reality?
It can't. It has never been a reality. No recommendation, no economic policy or development model proposed by the IMF anywhere in the world has prospered. They always make proposals, recommendations that are only useful for the powerful.
Stopping subsidies by government on fuel in the country is the same as increasing the prices of oil in Cameroon. So what's going to be the impact on our economy?
The impact on our economy, first of all, will be the increase in prices. That is, the purchasing power will be high. It will be very, very expensive, and there will be more poor people in the country. People will be unable to be buying manufactured goods, because we have no manufacturing industry. That tends only to weaken the efforts of a collapsing economy.
And an increase in prices of fuel in Cameroon is also an increase in prices of basic commodities.
That's it.
That's going to make
everything. Fuel is energy, and everything is more or less governed by energy. Education. Children need to read. How do they read in the evening? They read with energy. In rural areas where there's no electricity, what do they use? They use bush lamps, and the bush lamps, they use them with petrol. Petrol will be more expensive.
So what should the government do?
The government should think twice and do what they have been doing. They have to keep on providing subsidies, and they should better manage the revenues coming from fuel, petrol, and all the other products related to it.
So
that's good governance.
Good governance is not accepting maybe the proposal or the demands of the IMF mission.
The demand of the IMF mission is not, they are behaving as if it is the only economic solution. That's an economic solution among many other ones. There are so many economic solutions. But what do they propose? They do not make any proposal for measures, accompanying measures, that should try to alleviate any social upheaval.
What do you mean by the IMF is not the only economic solution?
But they are economists. They are human beings. No human being is perfect. They are not gods.
Is there any other option?
There are many other options. Why do they not ask the Saudi Arabia to stop subsidizing the economy with fuel revenues?
Are you somehow saying that there's an interest that the IMF?
Of course, that's obvious. The interest for Cameroon and any other country is to lay hand on the economy, to weaken the industrial structure.
And what would it give the IMF and International Monetary
That will help multinational. That will help multinational to lay more hand on the whole structure of the economy.
And do you think that the government would ever allow that happen?
We don't know. We have doubts because they put pressure for privatization. What the former chief economist of the World Bank, Joseph Stiglitz, called briberization, which means that they brought it. They were bribing government, civil servant, government deciders to accept the system of the model of privatization. But in the end, who benefited by it? What do we see here today on rail transportation sector? What do we see? What have we been experiencing as far as the sector of electricity is concerned? All is a failure. All those IMF solutions are not aimed at the interest of our country.
Thanks indeed, Mr. Richard Tondo, for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Mimi. Thank you.
And we hope to have you some other time again.
Thank you.
And to you viewers, we thank you so much for joining us in this edition of the 6 p.m. newscast on Equinox Television. Have a good evening and a wonderful stay as well in the company of our programs. Good evening to you all.